So you've noticed in your pattern that it says to crochet in the FLO. What does that mean? And why do we need to do that? Or maybe your pattern says crochet in the BLO. And what the heck does that mean? Well, let's go ahead and demystify these terms, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what it is to crochet in the front loops only and in the back loops only, and why we'd even have to do that when we're making amigurumis. Let's find out. Come on, guys.
So I've started off here with this really pretty light brown tone. This is often the color I'll actually usually use for my mini sunflower here. And so this was just a single crochet into a magic ring, and I increased around. So we're starting with 12 stitches. And in the last stitch, I changed to yellow. The last braid, right? So the stitches from your prior round, they create this little V shape. Well, that V is your stitch, right, that you're going into. So the difference between going into the front loops and the back loops is the front loop only is your front V that's closest to you. Okay, so if you're going into the front loops only, you would just pick it up from going underneath the loop, up through the center of the V, yarning over from the back, pulling forward a loop, yarning over and pulling through. Okay, so that's a single crochet into the front loop only. What you're doing is you're leaving that back loop unworked. Okay, so I'm going to just show you what that can do. So let's go into the next one. So we're just going in underneath the braid, up through the center of the V, yarning over, pulling forward, yarning over, and pulling through. Okay, so you'll notice something here. You'll notice that even if I was doing increasing, okay, so this one I'm going to do as an increase, but you'll notice that by working in the front loops, it's making the piece curl upwards, okay? So it's leaving this ridge, this nice ridge on the bottom. These are the back loops that we're not working into, and it's actually making my piece build upwards. So why would we need to do that? So perhaps you want to make something that kind of has sort of a cup shape, right? Maybe you're making a flower or something like that, and you wanted it to kind of poke forward. So you could do that. You could go ahead and work in the front loops only and leave the back loops unworked. You could also pick up the loops later on and do something else with them. So it really just depends on what your project is. But let's say, for example, I wanted to make a flower. And I am going to make the petals along that front loop. And then I'm going to bring the back loops, I'm going to connect, for example, some green, and I'm going to connect those there and then just build my stem from there. So that's a possibility that you could use those back loops. You could connect your yarn, right? So you can have your slip knot on your hook, and then you would work into these back loops. So you would grab the back loop going from the front of it, right, to the wrong side of your work here, and you could just single crochet into it, and you could start building your stem. So that's one way. This is a really good way when you're wanting to make like no-sew patterns and such like that. This is a really, really good way to connect pieces without having to sew them. You're just working into the front loops or the back loops, and that's allowing you to connect pieces without actually having to sew them together. So this is just kind of an example for you of how you might apply these techniques, right? So that's the front loop. You've worked into the front loop. Okay, now I'm going to work into the back loops. So I'm grabbing my working tail here, and I'm going to go ahead, and if you look at the braid again, can you see the braid? You're going to go into the back V. So you're going now into the center of the V, through to the back side of your work, yarning over, pulling forward, yarning over, pulling through. Now go to the next one. Okay, and maybe I'm going to just crochet, single crochet all the way around. I'm just going into that center of the V, through to the back side of my work, yarning over, pulling forward, yarning over, pulling through. You'll notice that I'm leaving the front loops unworked. Why would I need that? So if I want to leave the front loops unworked, it's kind of similar to what you might do with the back loops. Could be for different purposes. Could be that you just want to have a nice clean ridge, right? Whereas if you're working and you're switching colors and you're working through both loops, like I'm doing right now, there's no ridge. It's just connecting, right? So it's going to be a little bit more jaggedy, versus where I've left that front loop only, you can see a nice clean line. So if I was making a flower, for example, you'd have that nice circle, right? And then it would look like the petals kind of came from behind it. So that would give a really nice look, so that you feel like you've got that nice face and then you've got the petals behind it. So if you'll notice, when I stitched the back side and the front side of the head for my happy sunflower, this is my mini sunflower, I did not stitch the whole thing. So you'll see, let's see if I can show you. Do you see that nice ridge right there? So I left that front loop because I wanted there to be that nice ridge, right? I did the same thing on this other side. You can see the nice ridge. And then when I sewed these petals on, I sewed them in between the ridges. So the ridge is still very prevalent on both the front and the back side, because I liked that look. I wanted that nice clean line, and so I was able to get that. So that was just whip stitching them together, but this is just giving you an example of what you might use that for. Another time I've seen this used a lot is if you're making an amigurumi doll, for example. You might work into the back loops, leave these front loops unworked, and then, as we did with the green yarn before when we were going to build the stem, you would connect to the front. You could make like a little ripple on your dress or something like that, right? You could connect it and then build out a piece. So this is exactly what I did for Adeline's dress, right? So that was what allowed me to connect and then build out this nice little dress part here, was going into the front loop of the stitch. I was able to leave the back loops, and that creates that nice little puff effect that you're getting there. And you'll see I did the same. I worked into the back loops only for her shirt. That gave the edge of her shirt, right? So if I worked through both loops, you wouldn't get that nice sleeve line that you're getting, because I've worked only into the back loops. I connected the skin toned yarn and worked into the back loops with it, and I left that nice little ridge there. So that just kind of shows you, how you can apply these different techniques when you're making your different projects and get a different look, whatever it is that you're going for. Okay. Again, you'll see the ridge around the boot. I worked into the back loops only, and I left those front loops visible because I wanted there to be a nice little ridge around the bottom. Okay. So I hope these little tutorials are helping for anyone who's interested in designing their own patterns. You can use these techniques to sort of brainstorm how you want the shape of your piece to look. If you're just wanting to follow a pattern, that's totally great too. All these techniques will apply for you. And these just kind of tell you the why, and why a pattern designer might choose to have you work into the front loops only, which is FLO, or the back loops only, BLO, right? What it is that we're trying to achieve by leaving those unworked or picking them up later for another purpose. Okay, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you'll be let know of all my new videos that come out. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.